Today marks the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 terrorist attacks in the United States. There are moments in time when things we thought were certain can change in a heartbeat, and we know that nothing will ever be the same again. We recall exactly where we were at the time, what we were doing, and the shock we felt as the foundations of our very world seemed to shake. September 11, 9/11, 2001, in the United States was one of those days. That night in Sydney, as dawn was breaking in America, Jen and I were at home having a quiet evening together watching television. When the news broke through, we just sat and watched in numb disbelief. 20 years have now passed since New York and Washington were attacked by terrorists. And on this anniversary, we remember and honour the 2,977 souls, people who lost their lives on that day, taken from them, and the many more since. Our hearts go out to the families of the 10 Australians who were among them, and the many other Australians who were affected and traumatised by those terrible events. It was a time when we saw both the very worst, but importantly, the very best of humanity. Amid the devastation, we saw acts of love, of great bravery and sacrifice. The calls that were being made to loved ones from burning towers as the tragedy came down around them. Messages of love and goodbye. But there are also calls of brave defiance. "Let's roll," Ted Beamer said, as he and others on board took back Flight 93 and it crashed into the fields of Pennsylvania to thwart the terrorists' evil plans. And the thousands, of course, of first responders, many sacrificing themselves as they charged into the burning towers as others were evacuating. And then those who converged to find survivors for the days and days and weeks ahead in the rubble of Ground Zero. We pay tribute to all of their heroism and sacrifice. But first and foremost, let us remember this terrible event as an awful human tragedy, causing great personal suffering and grief to so many. When I think of September 11, my mind often casts forward to just over a year later, on the 12th of October, when the same evil terror that blasphemes the very religion it claims to serve was visited on 88 Australians in Bali. Each year, the families and friends of those Australians killed on that day gather on the cliffs of Coogee in Sydney to remember. I've often joined them there. And despite the passing of the years, their sorrow and their mourning, their loss and their grief, it continues. And so it will be for the families of the victims of the September 11, 9/11 terrorist attacks in the United States today and around the world. So on this anniversary, let our first thoughts be with them as we send our sincere condolences as a nation for the terrible loss that they have suffered, and of course to President Biden and all the people of the United States. We are with you today. Let us also appreciate, though, on this day, that September 11 reminds us that we can never take our peace, our freedom, and our way of life for granted. A little more than a decade before 9/11, the Berlin Wall fell, and some thought this marked the end of history, as they said, and the cause of freedom had forever prevailed. September 11 reminded us that freedom is always fragile. As President Reagan said, it must be fought and defended constantly by each generation. That day was an attack on free peoples everywhere. It was an attack on our way of life and the values of liberal democracy. Despite the pain inflicted on that day, the terrorists ultimately failed in their attempts to crush our resolve and change our way of life. Our then Prime Minister, John Howard, was in Washington, D.C. on that terrible day. He saw the smoke plume rise in Washington. He also saw the great and enduring spirit and faith of the American people. The Howard government invoked the ANZUS Treaty for the first and only time in its 50-year history. As John Howard said to the Parliament on his return, if the comradeship, if the friendship and the common bonds of democracy and a belief in liberty, fraternity and justice mean anything, it means that the ANZUS Treaty applies, and so it did. And when the Taliban refused to hand over the Al-Qaeda terrorists, we supported a US-led operation to hunt down Osama bin Laden and eliminate the capacity to stage more attacks against the West from Afghanistan. And together with the international community, we also laboured long and hard to help the Afghan people secure a better future. Sadly, the fruits from those seeds of hope are now very uncertain, but let us never doubt that our cause was and always will be a just one. On this day of remembrance, let us therefore honour all who served in Afghanistan, especially the 41 Australians who sacrificed in the service of their country and lost their own lives. And on this day, we rededicate Australia to the cause of peace and freedom and to the constant vigilance required to deny the threat of terrorism in all its forms. Let us appreciate all those who work every day to keep us safe, our police, our security agencies, our defence forces, our intelligence organisations, and thank them earnestly for their service. Let us commit ourselves to continue to stand with our partners and our allies, especially this day, our great friend and ally, the United States, as we work together for a world that favours freedom. And let us reaffirm the liberal democratic values that we share and that guide us and the truths that we hold dear as Australians. But above all, let us hold those we love a little closer and be grateful for their blessing in our lives as we remember the terrible tragedy of the awful terrorist attacks that took place on 9/11 20 years ago.